Hello, my fellow expats. Today, I'd like to talk about the two types of contracts we have in the Netherlands: temporary versus permanent. What are they, and what is the difference between the two, apart from the obvious reasons, of course? And what is the pros of having a temporary contract and cons of having a permanent contract? Yeah, there are pros in having a temporary one and cons in having a permanent one. So we're going to talk about those things in this video and see which one to go with. Depends upon your situation and what was my experience particularly during my career here in the Netherlands. If you think that's probably you might be interested in, then please continue the video. Otherwise, skip it up. Welcome to the channel. Yes, let's get into the details. So what is temporary contract? The temporary contract, it will contain a definite amount of time. So mostly the case, it will be an year or two, for instance. It is not guaranteed particularly. That's the catch. So not catch actually. It's really obvious detail, of course, that it is not guaranteed permanent employment. It is temporary because it has a definite amount of time. And after that, either the employer makes a decision to give another year, or sometimes it is mentioned to have a discussion to go with a permanent one. So we're going to look at those fine prints and example contracts, even from my own experience I got. But the main difference between the temporary and the permanent is the duration. So in the temporary, it's a definite, and permanent, it's indefinite. That's actually a proper legal term they'll use in the contracts, you will say. So it's a 1 year definite amount of time, and in the permanent contract it is mentioned as indefinite. I like the word more than a permanent. It's indefinite amount of time you get the contract. But in both the cases, there will be a probation period, a month or two, for the employer to assess the candidate. You might be a good seller, that you cracked the interview and you got into the job, that you couldn't do it well, and employer notices it. They will notice it. In my experience, I've seen it. But it's rarely the case that I've seen it is terminated soon after or before probation period, or at the end of the probation period. Soon after the probation, the very next day, you get the year term. And the permanent one, as I said, it's an indefinite period, and it will also contain 1 or 2 months probations, and rarely the case that it is effective immediate from the first day. I got both of them, and I like to share with you what was my experience. I have a bit of 5 to 6 years, so we're going to talk about those, and I will tell you which one I liked and what was my experience altogether. Spoiler is, it's not always the permanent. Yeah, definitely. It's not always the permanent. You're going to see what are the pros and cons between these, and we're going to talk about it. Let's go. Let's talk about the pros between these two. You might be surprised to know how much of a pro point the temporary contract has. The first thing is keeping you on your toes. First of all, because it will give you the sense of living on the edge. Not really like really sharp. They're just not that sharp, so to say. So it will give you a feel like you're living on the edge. That's not really a weight point, you might think, but trust me, it will give you like, okay, I have 1 year contract and it is not guaranteed that a contract will be extended. What do I do now? And the second point is possibility to negotiate better pay during the contract extension. So when there is a 1 year contract, there's most probably, even though you're not going to get a permanent in many cases, but if you're doing a good job and you're confident that, okay, you might know already, right? So that there's more job to do here in the company, and you made a name for yourself in the company, you're recognized, and you can already see that. It's very transparent as far as I have seen it. In the Netherlands, whatever it is, it's a big company or a small company, any domain it is, you will right away know, okay, there's more to do. Pretty sure I'm going to be working here. Employer has to come to you and arrange a meeting before the contract expires, right? It's not at the end of the day, end of the contract, but at least a month or two before, they'll have a contract extension talk. Most probably, I'm pretty sure if it's not happening, it's better you make the talk and saying, okay, my contract is going to end in a couple of weeks. What's the plan? So then, okay, let's have a meeting together. Then most probably you'll talk with your reporting manager, and that's the negotiation I'm talking about. It will not feel like a negotiation. It's mostly about they'll ask you, how do you feel working for the company past a year, the past duration, the contract, and would you like to extend it? Then if so, then the the talk happens, you have to mention it. It's not like, okay, what do you want? Then no one will ask you. As well as I know, it's like, okay, you're happy to extend, then it'll go by default. Only the term changes another year, but it's your responsibility to make the voice and say the crying baby gets a milk. It's as simple as that. You have the responsibility to make, and you also have an opportunity. Particularly, that's the main pro here. You have the opportunity to make a negotiation saying, yeah, do you guys want me? You gotta do better than this, not the same one. I need at least a bump. So you can talk the negotiation better. Sometimes it could be not just the money, it could be another allowance or a mobility allowance. It could be anything else, like a position. No, I've joined as a junior, now I'm pretty much a senior now. I need a team leader role or something. Any negotiations, it doesn't have to be, or it doesn't have to stop at monetary negotiations. Particularly, not just the pay, but the important pro is you will get an opportunity to negotiate the contract for the considerable extension or a different permanent contract. That's the main pro here for the temporary. It may not feel like it, but it is. In my experience, I've done it when I got a first year contract. I already knew the feeling. Okay, I'm the only guy here doing this kind of job here. They really depend on me. So it's not like you're taking them for granted, but it's a job, right? It's a job. So you know the what. And say, okay, I'm pretty confident I can ask for more. That's what I did, and I got in the extension. There was permanent contract as well. So I asked for 2 and I got the 2 as well. And the third pro is, you might not notice it, but in my experience, I've seen it, you'll be pushed to learn a new skill, either reskill it or improve your skill. For instance, I got a job and then I was pushed to learn a bit more. Okay, there's a temporary one. If I need all my skill sets in order to argue a bit more, because I have to be prepared. Like I said, living on the edge, I have to be prepared. If there's not going to be an extension, then I have to go look outside and apply for the jobs, right? So yeah, so you'll be pushed to improve your skills or reskill yourself. You might know, okay, during the 1 year, whatever I know, that's not working out anymore. So it's better I reskill with something else. That might happen, yes. In my experience, I had some, but I will talk about those in the probably in another video. The next one is mostly a subjective one. It's for people who wants to try new stuff. For instance, it's not like you're jumping between the jobs every month, but at the same time, you might want to try something else. Probably you're doing the same, your skill set is the same, but at the same time, you want to try a different domain. For instance, you worked in a banking for quite some time and a year, and then, I don't like the banking and stuff. You want to go for a product-based company or SaaS, you name it, robotics, in my experience. And it could be anything. You might heard there's a new AI development project you heard from your contacts, then you really want to jump that one. It is really possible for as a temporary contract, and the employer is also prepared in a way. Okay, this guy is hired as it is still a temporary one. It's probably to let the person go. Well, the main good option is for people who want to try something new. Yeah, you will have that freedom in the temporary more than the permanent. For the permanent, the job offer is the major pro. Yeah. It's stable income, indefinite amount of period, and not just that, the contract, with the indefinite contract, you can able to apply for a mortgage. I'm pretty sure in my experience, everybody, as soon as they get an indefinite contract, run to the bank and say, okay, I got an indefinite contract, let's do a orientation and see what's my cap of purchasing in house. The main pro is the possibility to get a mortgage and other loans, not just mortgage and other loans like personal loan. It could be possible. Yeah, you want to do some renovation. You already have a house. You want to do a renovation. It's really possible when you have an indefinite contract. You can apply for a personal loan from the bank. I've done it. That's the major thing. The stable income and the possibility to settle in real fast. That's the major drive for a permanent contract. Major pro for permanent contract. Who knows, for a moment as a start you get a permanent and then you want to look for something else, then temporary might be a good chance for you. It's kind of an extension of the previous pros, the carefree living and focusing on yourself. Yes, sometimes job is It depends upon the person, right? Sometimes your job is just a 9 to 5 thing for you, 8 hours, and then I don't care about the job. But because I have another hobbies or a family, yeah, you're raising a kid, a family, doing some gardening work, who knows, or doing some research, for instance. Yeah, even this, like a YouTube channel or something like me, then for you, it will be really carefree. You can focus on yourself. It could be sometimes studying as well, if at all possible. Then the major thing is the stability in the permanent. Okay, here's the interesting part. The cons of having a permanent and temporary contracts. You might already know the drawbacks of having a temporary contract. So let me see. The main con of having a temporary contract is it can be terminated with short notice. It could be 30 days. It could be a calendar month. So if you don't know what a calendar month termination is, it can go in both ways for you or the employer. For instance, when it is a calendar month notice, for instance, today is 21st. If I say the notice now, then I only have to serve this calendar month. That is ending in 9 to 10 more days. That's the calendar month notice. Yeah, as far as I've seen, no one's gonna really go brutal on it. Pretty for 30 days notice is pretty much normal, and most of the time you might wanna move on as well within those 30 days. You're not gonna stick around until the end of the short notice. Take a vacation in between and then leave. That's possible. The second con of the temporary contract is it's a kind of the following effect of the first one, being jobless. The possibility of being jobless. Yes, that is a possibility. If you're only going for temporary ones, I don't think no one goes for really temporary ones in a strict way. Somebody really want to live on really razor thin sharp edge, I guess. Probably privileged ones. If you don't have bills to pay and you're really looking forward to a particular contract, then you can I can pay my bills. I have the savings. Then you can be jobless for a week or two or a month. Then that's a con here. So it's not a fixed income. You're not going to get from the temporary one because you're between the jobs. So in the annual average, you're going to lose some money, right? You're going to lose the overall pay difference. Sometimes you get a temporary contract with less pay compared to the previous one. That's the second con. Probably these are obvious ones, but it's good to notice them, defined cons. Then you know, okay, what to look for. Is it a good trade for some time or it is not? So you can make the call. And the third one is more or less the same, uncertainty of the living situation. For expats, I'm talking about mostly because your stay here is mostly tightly coupled with the working condition, right? So if the sponsored visa, so to say, so if you work your living condition here, the resident permit is a sponsored one, and it's tightly coupled with the work offer, the work agreement, the MVV numbers. Then it's gonna be uncertainty of the living situation. I can totally understand if you get a 1-year contract here and you're an expat here, you're settled in, you looked an apartment to rent, have a living here, but suddenly the temporary contracts is gonna end, and you're like, oh, okay, looks like I'm going back. So that's it's like the uncertainty of the situation. The fourth one is not able to get a mortgage. There's not a single way, I don't think, as far as I know, it is not possible to get a mortgage or any loan, kind of loan from the banks, because they right away ask you about your employment condition, the annual statement. So the banks will right away ask you the employer declaration or employment declaration letter from your employer. You have to apply, and the employer has to provide as well part of some paperwork. You can apply and you get it. So in the employment declaration, the banks will ask, and it will be clearly mentioned that it's a temporary. Then definitely the banks are not gonna go. It's obvious, right? It's really clearly obvious, evident that you're not going to get a mortgage or any other loans for that matter. And the fifth one, say another one, is it's not good to live in paycheck to paycheck. Sometimes you don't want to do that. It's not an option, but You try to play with the cards you're dealt with, and paycheck to paycheck, it's not really good condition to live. It's really not a paycheck to paycheck like a sales guy. Sometimes it will be, depends upon the job. So don't take my word for it. If the temporary contract clearly says this is your basic pay, but you'll get more if you perform more, or if you sell more, if you get more orders coming in, then if the percentage is tied up with your performance, then of course it's a paycheck to paycheck living. So that's not at all good with the temporary. As far as when I've listed out the temporary cons, it's a no-brainer, right? Everybody understands it. But what about the cons of a permanent? Can you think of anything for permanent? I'm going to list them. I have a couple, but I'm going to list them out. Take a moment, pause it, or take a moment. Think about the cons of having a permanent. There you go. Let me list it out. The first one is a fixed job and fixed work options. You might think this is not a con, but it is. In my experience, for instance, you might be hired for as a permanent, and in a banking situation, you're expected to do repetitive fixed work. I'm talking about fixed, not in the permanent way, the indefinite way. It's about repetitive 9 to 5 jobs. That's really a con. You're going to lose interest. That's also a second point. Become boring. It becomes sometimes really routine in most of the permanent jobs. I'm not sure how outside of IT. It is expected to have one person at the job, right? So know the details, trust them to be in the place. So the companies will go for a permanent for most of the positions, and they say, okay, we need a permanent guy for this kind of task to be done. It could be a reception desk, administrative work, or server maintenance, or just a finished product maintenance. It could be anything, but you have to be sure. The major one I feel is being institutionalized. I like this word because from the Shawshank Redemption. It's mostly about being institutionalized. You get used to it, and you will not get the willpower or confidence particularly to take risks. I've seen it. I do even know friends, a couple of colleagues and acquaintances I know, they are fine. If they are happy, they're happy. Yeah? You do you. So whatever floats your boat. But my con to the permanent is there's a possibility that you get institutionalized. It takes a lot of force to get you out of that orbit and then the routine orbit. The gravity is too strong with the permanent, and the permanent contract works. So like I said, because of being institutionalized, you might not want to reskill yourself or push yourself to learn something new, or say, I'm doing something. It's okay. I know what to do every day. 9 to 5, I'm good. You think, okay, I don't want to reskill myself. I'm fine. It can be the case all the time. It can't be. So it's better to reskill yourself, or at least improve yourself something, to push yourself to learn something new. But that's the con of the permanent one, is you get into that routine, like I said, in the orbit, and then you do the repetitive stuff, institutionalize yourself, and then you might not want to find something new. So that's a major con as far as I know. Since you've heard it, what do you think the major pro of having a temporary contract and major con of having a permanent one? Because the other way it's a simple, obvious choice to make. But I really want to know what you think is a major pro of having a temporary one and major con of having a permanent one. Let me know in the comments.